Golf is just like anything else in life. It doesn't matter if you've been playing the game for just a couple of years or if you've been playing for several decades. You've no doubt seen changes come to your sport. The way you watch golf, the way you play golf, the different types of equipment, the technology that's involved. Golf has changed dramatically over the last several decades. And in today's video, I want to talk about some of the technological advances in golf and how they may have affected us positive or possibly negatively. Let's go. Hey everybody, and welcome back to GolfTestDummy, the channel where I use my game to help your game. I'm not sure that today's video is going to be super helpful as much as it just might be thought-provoking. I don't know what we can do with the information that I'm going to give you here, and it's not necessarily even information. It's just my opinion and my viewpoint, my perspective on what I've seen in golf in recent years and decades, speaking specifically about technology and how technology and advances in that field have affected us as golfers, maybe even a little bit how it's affected the entire industry, but mostly how it's going to affect us as normal, everyday, average golfers, weekend warriors who go out and play golf. Some of the things that we're going to run into that are going to be fairly common. I want to go through some of those today. I appreciate you guys giving me a thumbs up and supporting the channel by subscribing if you haven't already. And down in the links below in the description box, you'll see special links for Amazon to help support the channel. It costs you nothing extra. I appreciate that. There are some savings from Bionic Gloves and some other companies down there as well. I try to build some relationships with these companies to help you guys out and give you as much leverage as I can. I do not make a lot of money off of these, so it is mainly for your benefit. I hope that you guys will take advantage of it. Save yourself some money because golf doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be expensive either. Once again, I've got my trusty notes here at my side. Sometimes it's difficult to keep my focus in the right place, and I do this not only to remember some of the things that I want to say in these videos, but also to try and stay on point so I don't wander off down some path that has nothing to do with the subject matter I'm talking about. I titled this one, YouTube Technology and Golf Instruction. Now, I put golf instruction at the end of it because that's kind of what I'm going to wrap up with, my thoughts on that. But this is going to be about technology in a couple of areas and how it affects golf overall. And to start out here, I'll kind of just read through my opening. For the last couple of decades, technology has been advancing at a blinding pace. There's certainly evidence of this in the golfing world, and it seems to affect and influence every aspect of the game. For most of us, if we were asked to point out just a few examples of how technology has changed golf, we'd likely mention golf clubs first. I mean, that would probably be the number one thing that springs to mind. Even behind me, though, to sort of contradict that statement, I have probably one of the most useful tools, one of the most recognizable advances in technology in golf in the last, I would say, decade, give or take, the in-home simulator. Now, not everybody can have a simulator in their house, either A, because it's too expensive, B, they don't have room for it, or C, they just don't have time, or it could be a matter of choice. You don't believe in simulators, oh, that's crap, it'll never be real golf. And while I do agree that it'll never be real golf, or maybe if we were 100 years from now, it could be just like real golf, depending on what other kinds of technology we develop, I do think that this is a very useful tool, and more importantly, it's a whole lot of fun. I absolutely love having my simulator. Where was I? I've already gotten off track. Okay, it's really easy to see how today's drivers are far more complex than a driver from just 20 or 30 years ago. You can take a look at some of the drivers, the adjustable hosels, the AI face, all of the sliding weights, movable weights, all of these things that are in these driver heads nowadays that you didn't see 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They were still fixed. A lot of people 30 years ago were still using steel shafts. I think Tiger Woods won the Masters in '97 with a steel shafted King Cobra 2 oversized driver, if I'm not mistaken. I know that it had a steel shaft in it. It still wasn't moved on to graphite from that. We might even think about laser rangefinders, GPS, and apps on our phones, but even though it may not be the first example that pops into our minds, technology has seriously influenced golf instruction, and that's why I put YouTube technology and golf instruction in the title of this. Like I said, I'm going to try and wrap it up into a nice, neat little bow at the end of the video about instruction. But have these leaps in tech helped or hurt as a whole? It's a very good question, and a lot of times I hear people say that golfers today have not really improved very much over golfers from 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. I think that held true up until maybe the 90s, potentially, maybe the late 90s. I actually looked this one up. There are some stats out there that show that the average male golfer has dropped about 2 strokes. They've gone from, I think, a 16.5 handicap down to a 14.5 handicap. And while that only sounds like a little bit, it's only 2 strokes. That's actually quite a bit as a percentage. It's pretty large. And then the women, I believe, they've cut even more than men as a percentage as a whole. So golfers have been steadily improving for the last 2.5 decades. And it just begs the question, why? Why is that? And that's really what sort of sparked this whole conversation for me. We're going to start off talking about instruction. We're going to touch on the beginning here as the first point, and then we'll go at the end and sort of wrap it all up. So I'm going to tease you a little bit with the appetizer here, and then we'll get the main course and the dessert later. But ask yourself this question. I don't know how old you are maybe watching. There may be somebody who's out there just starting the game and maybe they're 12 years old, or you could be 84 and you've been playing the game for 7 decades, or maybe you're 65 and you just took it up 5 years ago. Depending on how old you are, however, you'll no doubt be able to say at least a couple of things about what your thoughts are on golf instruction, to kind of describe it to somebody who doesn't know much about it, either as you know it to exist or you knew it to exist way back when in your golf life. If you were born in the 50s, teaching pros weren't using much tech, if any at all. They were out on the range, they had you hitting golf shots, they were trying to teach you different moves or positions with your body or the club or whatever it might be, but they really just used their eyes and ears. They watched you swing, they watched the ball flight, they'd read your divots, all of those different things, even the sound of the strike, the sound they used. These were all tools. And everything was moving at such high speeds for most people. Your hands and the golf club are just moving at a blur. You can't really see what your wrist positions are. Now, you can theorize based on ball flight and divot and all of these things of where your ball is positioned. You could say, well, I see the evidence of that ball flight, and that leads me to believe that this must have been happening with the club and the face and the low point of the swing and what your hands must have been doing at impact, or at least coming into impact. You could sort of reverse engineer it, and you could read those things to sort of theorize about what was going on in the golf swing. But we didn't have anything to actually measure that until like high speed video and photography came along, and we could slow things down and get good detail. Or you could use devices such as the devices that I have over here right now. I've got a code down below that you can use to get the Hack Motion Golf sensor. It's a wrist sensor that goes on your wrist, and it tells you what your wrist angles are at the top, at address, at impact. All of those things you can measure quantitatively in a very precise manner. You didn't have all those things back in the 50s and 60s. Heck, you didn't even have them in the 90s. But you no doubt have some sense of what instruction used to be. But nowadays, if you're out on the range, you may not even be on the range. They do a lot of the instruction. I did my golf tech review just before a lot of these videos that you're watching now, and all of my instruction was in simulator bays because it gives you so much data. It shows you ball flight. It shows you all of these different data points. And it also gives you the benefit of the slow motion or stop motion photography that you can use to check at all of the different positions they want to check you at. So the technology that they have now, it's not a theory anymore. They're able to actually put numbers and measurements to a very precise sort of tolerance and be able to give you that information. Case in point, one of the things that we've learned from launch monitors and simulators and high-speed photography and all of that in recent years is that the face at impact controls probably about 80 to 85% of where the golf ball is going to start, and then the swing path and the difference between the path and the face, that face-to-path relationship, that's kind of what dictates starting point, curvature, and all those things. The tools of the trade are meant to give us as much insight as possible into what's happening during the golf swing, but has that helped us all become better golfers? It's a difficult question to answer, especially since there are so many other factors involved. More information is generally a good thing. In my life, just about everything that I know of, from work to relationships to what's going on with your kids at school, all of that, if you're able to get more information, it's usually a very good thing. But in golf, there is the old phrase, paralysis by analysis. I think we've all heard that before, and I think what that's referring to is just the fact that we get so much information that we almost get mentally stagnated, and that's why you see some golfers just freeze over the golf ball for probably somewhere between 5 to 20 seconds and just stand there, and they're trying to go through and remember all the things they're supposed to be doing, and it's really just sort of, it's like a CD skipping in their mind. It just keeps skipping over and over and over. And you see people freeze up, and they really struggle with that because there's just way too much information there. And I think, on the surface, I think golf needs to be more of a subconscious sort of action rather than a conscious string of thoughts. Should we, as golfers, have all of that data, all of those different data points that all of this technology measures, and all the things that the coach can tell you? Should we have all that information and all that data, or should it be filtered through a professional that basically dumbs it way down, and in order to achieve all of these different sort of points that you're supposed to hit, tell you something like, swing more to the right, and simplify it? We can understand that. We can grasp that concept. We can swing more out to the right. Okay, sure, I can understand. It's a simple motion. Swing more out to the right. But I think we get bogged down in, well, how do I swing more out to the right? Do I use my fingers? Should it be more of my wrist? Is it my right controlling it? Is my left controlling it? Should I roll this over as I do it? And how far right? Should it be 37 degrees out to the right? Should it be out to first base? Should it be 112 feet out to the right? Should it only be 4 inches to the right? Are you talking about swinging to the right at the golf ball? Or are you talking about swinging to the right 100 yards or 200 yards way down there where my target is? This is where so many golfers get lost in the weeds, because we have been programmed to believe that it is so much more complex than just swing out to the right. We have to have more information. We need it. There's so much more information out there. We have to have it. If it's available, we must consume it. Now, this next section, this is dealing with something that I think is fairly easy to sort of observe just how far technology has come. This is about a lot of the devices that you're going to use. The laser rangefinders, the GPS devices, many of them on your phone. I'm recording on my phone right now. You've got your phone in your hand, probably watching this video, and in your hand you have a very powerful device that you can download GPS onto. You can actually plug in sensors that work with the end of your club like Arcos. Just tons and tons of tech that is supposed to help us navigate the golf course much better. These devices give you a much better representation of yardage on the course, as well as letting you know exactly where trouble and landmarks are. I don't know about you, but I tend to play a lot of the older courses. I don't play a lot of the newer ones. With some of the newer, more manicured, more kept up golf courses from recent years and decades, the yardage markers, the tee markers, all of that, they tend to be a little bit more accurate. But some of the older courses, when they change things, a lot of times, if they move a tee box or a green here or there, a lot of times they don't move the yardage markers, the ones that are in the fairway, the little concrete slabs that are in the ground, the granite tee markers that sit back at a lot of the tee boxes. They're not paying to get those fixed. And you can end up with a pretty inaccurate representation of where a pond is, or where tree lines are, or the shape of the hole, or how far it is to the hole itself, the center of the green. Where bunkers are placed, how big are those bunkers in relation to the green? Things proportionately can be very deceptive, and if you don't have one of these new devices, and you don't have one of the yardage books like the fancier, more expensive courses have, you really need some course knowledge. And if you don't have that, the next best thing would be to have somebody there with you who's played the course quite often. But if you don't have that, the superior thing to have is a GPS device or a laser rangefinder where you can shoot that tree in the distance, that pond off to the left, that bunker that's greenside. You can use these devices to get the most accurate information you can have in order to play the course, or at least strategize and choose your club with a better degree of certainty and confidence. I think the problem with a lot of these devices is, first of all, let's say this. The last part that I was talking about, where we were talking about some of the devices that instruction uses and technology and things like that, and giving you possibly too much information to give you that paralysis by analysis. In this case, I think this is an area where golf has really improved with the GPS and the laser rangefinders. I think they are spectacular pieces of kit to help the average golfer get around the golf course. Even if you've played the golf course 1,000 times, maybe you've never been in that particular spot in the woods or the fairway, and you need to know some more information to help you with your club selection. So I think this is a very good thing. This is an area where all of this information is very helpful. However, where we go astray is when a lot of the golfers are delusional about what they can actually expect out of their clubs. They have some sort of a hysteria, and they think they hit a 7-iron on average 185 yards. But the reality is that if you would just use another piece of technology like Arcos or GolfPad, an app you can carry on your phone, to actually track your yardages, you'll see that your 7-iron might go more like 157 on average. Yeah, there's that time you thinned it and it bounced off of a sprinkler beside the green and went 185 yards. But in reality, your 7-iron goes 157. If you've got 185 to the pin, it's a little uphill, it's damp out, you're not going to get a whole lot of roll, and you don't have the best lie. Odds are you probably need to hit more like a 5 hybrid to get there if you were tracking accurate yardages with your clubs. So I think these devices, these things are super helpful, but there's a second component that has to plug in and work in tandem with those devices, and that being you being honest with yourself about what you actually do with your clubs. And it's not just yardages. It's also how often are you striking those shots average or well? How likely are you in this particular situation with this lie and these circumstances, how likely are you to pull off this shot and hit it your average distance? If you hit a 7-iron 157, let's say you're in a divot. Let's say you're coming out of a little bit of rough. Let's say it's uphill. Let's say this or that or the other is taking place. There's a little wind in your face. Well, now you can't just pull 7-iron from 157 yards and say, yeah, this is it, and then wonder why you're 30 yards short when you come up there to the green. It's because you didn't consider everything. So I think we could drop a lot of strokes using these devices. We could really help ourselves out, but we've got to be honest, and you've also got to be thorough when you're making your club selection. All right, on to the last section. This one I have a little bit to say about, and this one is really the meat and potatoes of this whole video. I really hope that you've continued watching up to this point, and I really hope that this could, in fact, help you. There's going to be some things I'm going to say in here that may get me some comments down below where people are calling me almost a hypocrite, and that's fine. I welcome those comments. I just hope that you'll hear me out before you give me your comments. Even though there are many more examples of technological advancements in golf, this last one is something that you may not readily think about. Kind of a sleeper, but it has been changed by technology as much as anything, and it splinters off of the first subject that I covered, which is golf instruction. So I started with a little bit of golf instruction, now I'm going to finish with it, but this one's from a different angle. Think about the time before there were online stores, if you're old enough. I'm definitely old enough. I know a lot of you out there are. There are some people, however, that they don't know a time before they had online stores, which just blows my mind. Everything was brick and mortar, and shopping on a website or an app, it didn't exist. Then the first few online stores started to pop up where you could shop and purchase things through your computer. I remember this time. I remember that pretty well. There were so many people that did not trust putting their banking and personal information out there. You know those people, you may be one of those people. And some didn't think they could shop without touching the item to make a decision, while others just shook their heads incredulously, stating that it would never become mainstream. Well, you know, fast forward to now, and that's shopping online is very mainstream. It's a very common thing, and I would argue that even the people that felt like they never wanted to put their card information online and things like that, they're probably doing it to a certain extent nowadays. It may not be that they're doing it often, but I think it's become pretty damn ordinary nowadays to shop online, at least for a few things. Now, when it comes to groceries and stuff like that, I haven't started doing that yet because honestly, are they going to pick out the best batch of bananas or the best head of lettuce in the produce section? Probably not. If we use that as an example and apply it to golf coaching, there are some definite parallels. Definite parallels here. All coaching used to be in person. You didn't like mail off a letter and ask somebody for golf tips and then wait on the letter to come back. You had to go and see somebody at a place in person with real golf balls, with a real golf range where you could actually hit shots. It couldn't be a simulator. It couldn't be, over a video. You had to go see somebody in person. You went to a ranger club, you had time with your pro, and that was that. But then YouTube came along, and in the beginning, it was a bit disorganized and amateur and not widely used. So now we're getting into what I really wanted to talk about, which is YouTube golf coaching. Tips, coaching, videos online to help you with your golf game. If you fast forward to now, you see gobs of instructors, many of whom only teach online. There are some instructors out there, they don't even do in-person lessons anymore. They're not meeting you out on the range or the golf course. It's all over a Zoom video, or sometimes even, just you send in your videos to their email address and then they look at it and they give you the tips to work on, and that's that. But I think the majority of coaches that do online coaching, they do some in person as well. It just may be more expensive in person. A lot of times you get it cheaper when it's over the web. The videos that are produced are much better now. You can go back and look at old Rick Shields. You can look at old Peter Finch. You can look at some of Sean Clement's old stuff, and the things that were out 10, 12 years ago, they're much better produced now. It's really an arms race on YouTube. You've got to have the best video. You got to have the best sound. You've got to have title screens and graphics and things flying all over the screen. It's just gotten much more like an actual TV show on a lot of these channels now than just YouTube, which the spirit of YouTube was supposed to be everybody to get their 15 minutes of fame and just sit down and talk about things or show their coin trick or how they wash their car. That was it in the beginning. Some of these guys even have professional camera and sound crews employed. Many coaches have their channels that also have websites. They offer tips, in-person lessons, one-on-one lessons through live video chat, or they post tips online for anyone willing to watch. And this is where I believe, once again, that technology has provided so much information, but we're still fumbling around in the dark looking for the light switch. I feel like there should be a YouTube instruction for dummies golf book. So that you can sort of interpret and understand golf YouTube instruction. There needs to be some kind of a book to help you muddle through the ocean of YouTube instruction that is out there now. There is just a metric ton of this stuff around. YouTube videos are generalized. Keep this in mind. Most instruction, when they make a video talking about why you slice, or use this to get more distance, or this is the real driver behind the golf swing, or this will fix your golf swing in 3 minutes flat. When they make videos like that, they are generalized videos that should appeal to the masses. They do not have a particular person in mind when they make that video. They have a broad stroke of a group in mind when they make those videos. And when you start looking at groups in that way, and you start thinking about how you can make a video to help them, what you're doing is trying to blanket help all of these people when each individual person has a very individualized swing with its own little differences and componentry involved. So you need to keep that in mind, that these tips, they can be helpful maybe, but they are very generalized. They are not specifically tailored to you. They deal in concepts and theories, and they're aimed at someone that doesn't actually exist. By that, I mean the average golfer is just that. It's an average, but the average golfer doesn't really exist, at least not in the flesh and blood human being sense. A prime example would be a video titled, "This is Why You Slice," where the instructor demonstrates that your trail shoulder comes out too early, you get too steep on the downswing, and boom, you slice. Then the fix is this. But why you, as an individual, slice may be a very different reason. It might be something completely different altogether. The only reason that a golf ball slices is because the club face is open relative to the path, and it cuts across the golf ball, imparting side spin. That is the only real reason that everybody slices. Now, why you in particular slice, it could be a timing issue, it could be a mobility issue, it could be your grip, it could be how you're set up, it could be your shoulder, it could be any number of things. It could even be a combination of any number of things as well. So for that reason, you may find a video that helps you with your slice kind of in general, and you say, oh, I tried this tip off of this video and it worked. I fixed my slice. But for the most part, by and large, most people are not going to fix their slice in a permanent, consistent way. Anybody can fix it for 3 or 4 swings, but in a permanent, consistent way, you're most likely not going to fix it with that generalized one-off tip. We need to understand that there's a big difference between personalized one-on-one instruction and general instruction from a video that's meant to do one thing: gain tons of views through clever marketing. You have to remember that's the main driver. Most people are creating YouTube videos, not all, but most people are creating YouTube videos to try and get a bunch of subs, to build up, to get really high, get tons of views. And if they get tons of views, they're going to get tons of money. There are quite a few YouTube golfers that you can name that are probably making some pretty damn great money. There are plenty of them that do it full time and make exorbitant amounts of money. This channel, I make about $300 a month currently off of this channel. It's been that way for quite a while now. It hasn't really gone up, it hasn't really gone down. That's what I get based on my views. If you break that down and I release a video once a week for a month, that's 4 videos a month that I would release. That's about $75 per video. With the time, the effort, everything that I set up, spending time to type all this up, responding to all the comments, making the thumbnails, posting it, doing all of that stuff to keep the channel up and keep it fresh. $75 for each video, it's just not a lot of money. But there are plenty of golfers out there that are making loads more than I'm making, and that's what they need you to do. They need you to watch the video. So you're going to see a lot of sensational titles. You're going to see a lot of bold claims. You're going to see a lot of people telling you, hey man, this is going to fix your golf game in 3 swings. That gets you to click on the video. That's the clever marketing, and that's what their motivation is. Now, when you watch the video, they may actually give you a legitimate tip that they actually believe can help you. It doesn't mean that they're trying to bamboozle you necessarily, but they need this video to be visible. They need it to be seen by a lot of people. But to get real, lasting, consistent change that's personalized to you, most of the time those videos, they're just for shock value. You need lots of exclamation points and bold claims, and above all, a promise that in 5 minutes, all of your troubles will be no more. With very little effort on your part, just hit the thumbs up button and poof. At the end of the day, you're an individual, and even if you don't like the comparison, golf swings are like snowflakes. No two are alike, and while the top players in the world all have very similar positions in multiple places, mostly that doesn't necessarily mean that it is meant for you. Tiger Woods recently said to stop watching YouTube and go beat golf balls. It's very true. He's not wrong. But I don't believe it's a worthless platform. There is value here. There is value on YouTube with golf instruction. It is here, but it's not everywhere. We just can't take the generalized golf instruction and make it work for all of us in every circumstance all of the time. So have fun. Watch videos, and by all means, try some of the things you see. But there are no magic pills, and there is no substitute for hard work. Go dig your swing out of the dirt.